Hi, this is Chuck Westfall from Canon USA again, and we are here at NAB 2012 in Las Vegas, and this time we're demonstrating the Canon EOS 1DC. This is our digital cinema version of EOS that actually is the first time to be able to record 4K video directly into the camera. It's using basically the EOS 1DX body that we introduced last October, but now this camera has been totally optimized for video, recording 4K 4096 by 2160 resolution at 24 frame per second motion JPEG, 8-bit 422 directly into a CF card in the camera body. There's also the ability to record HD video, and at that point you have your choice of going up to 1080p 60 frames per second if you wish, recording into the card on the camera. There's also a Super 35 crop function, which will allow you to get a smaller portion of the scene, and that can be recorded up to 30 frames a second. But probably one of the most interesting things on this camera for HD is the ability to actually come into the HDMI port. And now you can actually go to an external recorder, 8-bit 422, clean HD via HDMI. So unlike the previous EOS bodies that always would show you some of the viewfinder data, we actually have a full clean image here that we can record. And so that's a very nice extra feature to have. A couple of the other things that are new here: headphone jack, which we didn't have before on the EOS 1DX. We also have the ability to look at the LCD monitor while we are connected to the HDMI, which is really good for the camera operator. And probably the last but not least is that you have Canon log gamma, which is the best picture profile to use when you're coming out to a professional editing situation to maintain maximum amount of information in your shadow detail and your highlights. So this camera really steps way higher than any previous EOS model in terms of video, and yet it has all the still capability that the EOS 1DX has as well. So you can still shoot full frame RAW files or JPEGs up to 12 frames per second. And there's a super high-speed JPEG setting up to 14 frames a second at full 18 megapixel resolution. Dual CF cards, and the whole 9 yards as far as still photography is concerned, with the 61-point autofocus system and everything else. But for video, this really is a very unique proposition. About a $15,000 price point, which puts it about half of the EOS C500 in a much smaller form factor. So to be able to come up with 4K quality in that size and price is really quite something. You actually do have the same codecs available as the 1DX and the 5D Mark III, which are the all-I, which is an intra-frame type of motion JPEG, or what we call IPB, which is a long GOP. So at that point, you have your choice, and it's going to be a matter of how much compression you want and how many megabits per second you want to output. At maximum in full HD, you're looking at about 685 megabits per second. When you go into the inter-frame compression, the IPB mode that we have is more like about 200 and something megabits per second. So you get roughly 3 times the amount of footage in the same amount of capacity. Now, another thing that I would point out as a difference of this compared to the previous EOS models is the fact that there is no time limit. So it's only your card or your recorder on your external recorder that determines how long you want to record. Now, if you're in 4K, you're looking at roughly 4 gigs per minute at 4K resolution. So if you have a 16 gig card, you have about 4 minutes worth of video there. Of course, if you go HD, it's a whole different story. You're looking at, say for example, on a 16 gigabyte card, you'd be looking at about 22 minutes at your motion JPEG type, or over 60 minutes with the IPB inter-frame compression.
Now, when you record in 4K, obviously you're talking about 4 gigabytes per 1 minute. Does it then does it create individual clips because of the FAT32 format of the cards?
Yes, of course. You know, you still have a FAT32 format unless you have like a card that's larger than 128 gig, in which case it goes into exFAT. But you're still basically talking about the camera automatically creating those files on the fly, and then you putting them together after the fact during your post.
So you have to then stitch each individual clip that's part of a master clip together. Is Canon providing any kind of software to wrap that in MOV or to create one movie?
Yeah, well, actually, the software that we provide, if you're going to go for 4K, is just strictly a movie player. It's really not an editor, but it's going to allow you to see your files, on your computer without having to invest in a gigantic professional editing system first. To at least let you see what you have and be able to do a little bit of file management before you then go to the next stage of actually working with the data.
So will it allow you to transcode it or export it as one master QuickTime movie?
Well, what ends up happening is that you use a plugin that we offer. For example, there's a plugin that goes into Final Cut Pro X that does that coding for you.
Okay. So it'll stitch together all these little individual files into one. So is there time code header? How does it know that those files are part of the same clip?
Yeah, you do have a time code actually embedded into the file, whether you're talking about going into the compact flash card or coming out of the HDMI. And the menu on the camera will let you choose between rec run or free run, so you can pick the right one according to your production. The rec run being primarily for a single camera, and the free run more for a multi-camera environment.